All right, ready? One, two,
One, two,
three.
Dude, what the-
It's close enough. I don't think it matters. I don't think ours matter.
okay. All right.
It just matters for your audio and video and my audio and video.
Do I look janky right now? Should I go put on a jacket?
No. You look good. Do I
sure?
look janky?
Okay.
I'm the one who looks
No,
janky.
you look good, but like I just want a disclaimer out there that I'm in Texas, not in Connecticut. So if I put on a hoodie, I'm gonna sweat.
It snowed.
Just so
it snowed
aware.
last night, quite a bit, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back. Another episode of the Moto Academy podcast featuring co-host Dave Drakes. And this episode, we're going to talk about Supercross a little bit. We're going to talk about the last class that I just had in California because I want to fill you in on that, Dave. It was super awesome, and it was such a cool track.
Looked great.
And it was such a unique location. And then we're also, because we haven't had a chance to debrief yet, I do want to talk a little bit about Malcolm Stewart.
If you don't, I will be very angry.
I mean, I honestly think we should probably start there. But before we start there, Moto Academy is on tour. Go to the motoacademy.com. Check out all of our locations. We're going all over the place. Myself, Coach Mitchell, we're dividing and conquering. Coach Mitchell's been killing it. He gets better reviews than I do. And I feel like I'm firing on all syllables lately. So Coach Mitchell must be doing something right. We have summer camps on the website, so if you want to spend a full week with us. And then we also, by the time this is released, I bet you that it will be live on the website where you guys can sign up for semi-private amateur Supercross training at our Winchester location. So that's turning into our full-time home base. We're going to offer weekly training there where you guys can pop in for 3-hour time blocks. You can buy training packages at a highly discounted rate. All of that is on the Moto Academy website as well. So go check that out. I am very, very excited for that. It's all separated by groups. You guys will be able to look at that information when you're on the website. And then the collective experience, were you at Tampa for the collective, or did you just go just because?
No, we're firing 100% right now with the collective. So Tampa flew in for that one. I was supposed to fly in for Glendale to show the West Coast peeps some love, but you know how we feel about East Coast Moto. It's East Coast Supercross, East Coast Moto. It's just different. So we were there. The full program's open, and a lot of AJ's the people that you hire come from the collective. Yeah. Which we were looking at some stats the other day, and it's like, holy crap! So many people that came through our program are now TMA full official staff, and we're walking through the pits. And a lot of this, you were there for the. Mitchell, Coach Mitchell came through the collective.
Yeah, I forget that all the time.
And I still remember the weekend he was there. We made fun of your tight jeans incessantly, and some of the greatest jokes of all time. But yeah, as you walked through the pits, dude, so many people were waving too. We're like, oh, that's the guy from so and so, or he helped AJ out with blah blah blah. So it's cool, man. It's super cool to see the industry accepting the collective, and we're firing.
I always
100%.
forget because they become like a part of the family pretty quickly.
The family,
usually.
Yes. Yes,
and then
you said it.
They end up also so a lot of the times leveling up pretty quickly, so that you see them in positions or roles, and then I forget that it was, oh my God, it was just 2 years ago that this person was literally signing up just for an internship program or a fan experience or something like that. I always forget, and now you see all those familiar faces, and they're in their spots and doing
these cool jobs. And it's incredible to see, because I know my camera roll's full of just 2019, 2020, 2018 of all of us sharing a hotel room and getting breakfast and doing all these cool things together. And now they're like, now I run XYZ Moto, super cool company. And I'm like, geez, dude, that's insane, So
making $20 million a year. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So, and for all of you guys that aren't aware, if you're in the Moto Academy app, you save big using the promo code, the Moto Academy, on any experience that we have, internship, our ultimate PRMX experience, our fan experience programs. If you are in the Moto Academy app, you are ushered in automatically as family. We hook you up, make it happen. Go to tma.com. Enjoy it. It's fun. The community is great. We keep talking about it. More people should do it. I don't understand how a lot of people are like, I'm on the fence. I'm like, guys, it's so fun. The community that you've built is great. Just having people like GP in there at all, it's just so fun. It's so funny. And the classes are great. Mitchell's great. The whole thing.
The Moto Academy app's been popping off in the community, and they're we're leveling up. We're leveling up. So let's talk about Malcolm Stewart, Dave, because
Oh my gosh.
I
That
was
was,
I was
oh,
thinking about you the whole time because I knew you were there. So I had just
yeah.
landed somewhere
Oh,
for a
you weren't home?
class.
I thought you were home.
No, I was in a rental car watching from my phone. So when I talked to you, you called me or I
Mm.
called you after the race ended, I was in my rental car in a random parking lot because I was driving and the
Oh,
450
okay.
main started to get so spicy that I had to just pull
Mhm.
over
Yeah.
and watch. And I'm sitting there tearing up in my rental car watching this whole Malcolm Stewart thing go down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't believe Dave is there without me. Like, what a race. Because there's been
Dude, it
so many
was,
times in the past where there's
oh,
been flashes where like Malcolm, it's like, this is the one. This is gonna be it. This is gonna be it. And so many
yeah.
times it's been like a letdown where he gets hurt or crashes or something happens.
Oh my goodness. And I'm thinking about one moment in particular, Glendale,
Yep.
you and I were sitting in the stands. I forget why. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. Well, no, you were 250 that year. So yeah, it makes sense.
And we were
But we were
watching
in the
the long
stands.
whoop section from dead
The
on, I
long
think.
whoops,
Yeah.
yes. And we saw him. We were like, there's no way he's not going to have a 10-second lead by the end of this race the way he's going through the whoops. And that's the year that he cartwheeled, broke, I think it was his femur he ended up breaking.
Yeah.
And dude, we were so gutted. But yeah, those flashes of brilliance have been there for years. And we've been, as Malcolm Stewart fans of the sport, we wanted that to come out and, to see that full potential Malcolm. And to finally see it actualized, yeah, dude, it was great. I mean, you know Malcolm like on a personal level. You guys have raced
Yeah.
together since what, 80s, 60s.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was so cool to see that happen. And I'm a big Malcolm Stewart fan. So it was great, man. Manny called me and he was like, "Do you see us? Do you see us on Black History Month?" Dude, he was so amped. I think you called me either right before or right after Manny did, and dude, we were geeking. It was insane. And what I keep telling people about being there, you felt that entire stadium erupt when he got around Sexton for the lead. Like not a single person from all walks of life. Dude, I don't care if you were a good old boy from Alabama or if you were a dude that was visiting from Harlem up north. Everybody was so excited for Malcolm, and you could really see like the fanfare that he garnered over the years just came out to support him in full force. The only other person I see that can have that effect on everybody across the board is Aaron Plessinger. So seeing both those guys in the last couple of years get something, it's great, man. But yeah, I was ecstatic, dude. We drove home from that race. I was beaming all the way to the hotel, dude. I was so amped.
Did you watch the race on TV after the fact?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. It was just,
Watch it there too. Yeah,
it was great. And to have James up in the
yeah.
whatever the heck while announcing it as it's happening. I
Mhm.
mean, it was awesome. And
Yeah.
being a racer, and I think at any level racer, you can relate to this a little bit, but especially
Mhm.
for a pro racer that just goes through it and just gets let down and disappointed constantly.
Yeah.
And to be at it for that long and to get a win, and then to also get a win, and I don't care how you get it, but to get a win that way, properly coming through the pack and passing
Yeah.
all these guys and just owning that every bit of that race, it was very cool. Also, can I give a
Yes.
shout out to Malcolm Stewart for low key just riding with the feet on the pegs all the time? Have you picked up on
Into the
that? His
sand.
feet are on the
Yeah.
pegs a ton.
Exactly. The only time I saw him like sort of deviate from that or like super tight insides, but you could even see going into that sand section, he was actually able to turn down a lot and pivot a lot easier. I think because he had his feet in the pegs. He's able to
So the
maneuver
corner
bike
after
and
the
get
whoops
the extra.
before the sand, like beautifully
Correct.
just pivoting with both feet on.
Yep.
And I was like, that's how it's done. And
That's
that's cool too,
textbook.
because that's a rider that has been doing it with me for forever.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of evolving. That probably has been happening over the course of the last 4 to 6 years, him getting better and
Definitely.
better at it. But this
Yep.
is the first year where I've really, and maybe he's getting more TV time than he has the last couple of years, potentially.
Mhm.
But this is the first year where I've been watching. I'm like, ooh, nice. Like leaving those feet
It's
on a
good.
ton.
It's really good. And one thing that I want to comment on also is the fact that he is becoming a rider who you're looking at is like, wow, it's technique, maybe not all the time. It's really pretty solid.
Really good.
Whereas as you remember when he first went pro on that Suzuki, it was a little rough.
Yeah.
Back in that colorful O'Neill gear. A little rough, man. You didn't really have the 100%, Chase Sexton or Jet-esque finesse and technique on the bike. But the last couple of seasons, I don't know if it's an Alden thing or just him maturing as a rider or really coming into the proper form. It looks good. It looks really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It really does.
Shout out.
Okay,
Shout out
so
to Malcolm
this
Stewart.
weekend was what the heck just happened? What race was it?
Detroit.
You weren't there, or were you
City.
there?
Was not there. It was a little cold. It's a little cold. I heard about that one a couple weeks ago. They're like, yeah, I think temperatures might plummet. And I was like, all right, we're going to transfer that flight.
So Detroit, the way that the pits are set up there, and they flash to like riders kind of riding down and then dropping into the tunnel a couple of times. And it gave me just PTSD of the way the pits there are really horribly set up. So for the privateers, they're all shoved into a shoebox of like literally it feels like you're in a closet.
It's a utility closet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's storage. Yeah, it is. Well, that's why all the chairs are always on the entrance. Right. Like they're stacking them up. Yeah, you have like rows of chairs. Yeah.
So yes, wow, I never even realized that. Literally, the privateers are in a utility closet, and it's warm-ish. But every time that door opens, you get a wave of the freaking freezing cold. And then the factory guys are pitted out of the inside of their semis, which seems highly convenient too, because they're having to commute to and from outside in the freezing cold.
Yep.
Which
it's a pain.
Yeah, I do love East Coast, but that is one thing you have to get used to is you're gonna have some cold ones. Minneapolis, Detroit, Indianapolis.
Especially if you've been in a warm place and you kind of get the thinning out of the blood a little bit. Once you go there, you're like, holy crap! I remember I used to live in a cold place. It's a little chilly.
Yeah.
But I mean the tracks are usually pretty good, and we had some luck there over the last couple of years. We had an LCQ win there.
Yeah.
Some really fun times. Yeah, some really, really fun
450
times.
LCQ win where I freaking
450.
just.
It was wire to wire.
What?
It was wire to wire, that LCQ win. That was
I actually rode. I remember specifically because I rode really well that day. Yeah.
Yeah. And the infamous video of AJ Whitrock in your ear saying,
and that was a
Triple
Crown.
Was it?
Yeah. Because I remember.
I don't remember that.
I remember battling with Bogle, I think, in one of the Triple Crown. Because there was 3 main events. There was a long whoop section before the right-hand turn into the finish. I remember that track really well. I had a couple good 250 years there in Detroit as well. Detroit's it ruts up a little bit. It's tacky, but it's not like Indy annoying crazy. Where sometimes Indy
gets so rutted
too much.
Yeah,
Detroit's like a nice. It's not St. Louis good, but it's one of the definitely I'd say one of the better ones.
Yeah,
I've always liked Detroit. So. Also, I tore my ACL in Detroit. I just remembered in 2016, but I was hauling butt that day before, and I think I missed the main event by like 1 spot that night, and I tore it in time qualifying. So even after I tore it, wrapped that bad boy nice and tight. That was the day I started riding with both feet on my pegs. Was literally that night. But I've always liked that track. So let's see. Let's talk track a little bit first. Then we'll go 250, then 450. Track look, and Carmichael said this on the broadcast too. He goes, I don't often say that I'd want to ride a track as I'm watching it, but this is one that looks fun. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. It looked a little too easy. Maybe there wasn't much to separate anybody. Everybody was doing exactly the same thing, but it looked fun. And it looked like a lot of the sections kind of flowed and connected. The sand, which usually is an annoyance, looked actually kind of cool. Like you could float through it, scrub the double, going throttle side down. Then you could scrub the finish line, going clutch side down. It looked kind of fun.
Exactly. And flowy is a good word. And what's really cool with the sand section is you saw 2 very distinct lines develop that came together in I don't want to say a dangerous way, but a spicy way, So we got to see maybe some good passes or somebody maybe if you're going head to head into that section, one of you guys are going to get an advantage depending on, how the line is that particular lap and how much you want to throw in there. So I thought that was really well done. Anytime we get a chance to see back-to-back left and right scrubs, it's a cool track because they're going to start getting a little cute with it, throwing a little English. The one thing that I did see that I was like, I feel like that line could be better was they almost have like that stepped table, like that weird step on that you could kind of hop on and kind of double out of.
Yeah.
Or try getting on top of that looked like it was it was work, and it almost like stunted momentum for a lot of riders. That's the only area that I was like, not my favorite. But like you mentioned, flowed well. I thought everything else was pretty smooth. We had some pretty good 180 bowl corners. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I think the tracks this year, this is another one that we can say like, yeah, I was really excited to watch the guys battle it out on there. And me as a racer, maybe not at that level, I'd like to roll a couple of those sections, some singles, you know?
My biggest complaint as a rider for that one would have been that the whoops
Mhm.
were short, and I would have wanted 2 sets or just a longer set. I did like how it was a roller into the whoops,
Yeah.
because that usually messes guys up and or scares them, because he's like, you're just trying to figure out how to come in fast, keep the speed up over the roller, get the suspension in the right spot.
Mhm.
But they were pretty short. Would have been my
Yeah.
only complaint. But
Yeah.
everything else honestly looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Racing wise, oh, there was a couple of big highlights and a couple of things I think I maybe have hot takes on too, and I want to hear your
Mhm.
opinion. So, and this might not be chronological, so bear with us here. Can Who do I want to talk about first? Well, I guess first thing, Forkner. So Forkner was in the LCQ. Forkner, I think, won
Mhm.
the LCQ,
Mhm.
but there was Kobush who was battling with him at the beginning, and you could tell. I
Yep.
think Kobush is either Oklahoma or Texas, isn't he? So I think he's from, and maybe has trained or
Yeah.
ridden with Forkner in the past. I had a sense that when I was watching that battle go on, it looked
Mhm.
like Kobush was kind of trying to go into hero mode a little bit and like doing everything he
Mm.
could to get by Forkner, even if it was just
Yeah.
for a second.
Yeah.
And he ended up just absolutely cartwheeling himself in that weird little janky section you were talking about. The reason I want to bring
Yep.
that up is because if you guys replay that, editor's note, if you watch the full clip here, we'll replay it for you. He landed back tire first. Now, I don't think he meant to land back tire first, because he kind of like jetted off of that thing like
Yes. Yeah. And got
weird.
little nose high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it
Yep.
was accidental, and it wasn't
Mhm.
enough hang time to correct it. Hits
Yep.
the back tire first and immediate cartwheel.
Yep.
And
And
for
that's
those
the
watching,
example
had you
that
done
you
that
keep
front
talking
tire
about.
first, it would have
Yep.
hurt, but you would have plowed through it.
Exactly. He would have stayed up and been able to still maintain that position. You can see how angry at himself he was after that one. Yeah. But no, that was a really good point. Then also, the fact that we saw Faulkner in the LCQ, I thought for sure this would be almost like a renaissance for him, where he'd have a new bike, new outlook. He'd really want to ride to the full potential. You know what I mean? In a safe way, in a much safer way. But like revamp his approach to racing, but still be one of those guys where I feel like, and I'm a Faulkner fan, so I'm not bashing the guy. It feels like he's almost like pulling himself back a little bit, like riding a little bit more of a safer mode and maybe not taking those chances initially. And this could be just an early on kind of thing. He could change it up further on the series, but I feel like we're not seeing the Faulkner that, like, yeah, he's top 3 in practice. He's getting good starts. He's out there, eyeing for the front. I feel like he's almost like, yeah, I'm a top 5 guy, and that's where I'm happy to just stay and do my own thing. But what's your thoughts on
This
it?
is where 250 Supercross is difficult, is because you have so few races that I think he had the flu or he was sick for the first one, right? So it's like, all right, the first one, you kind of scrap that. I think
Yeah.
they might have said he was still borderline not feeling super well, or he didn't ride midweek. Maybe he only rode one day before the second
Mm,
round.
yeah.
And then you crash in the heat race and
Mhm.
blow your heat race. Next thing you know, you're in the LCQ. Next thing you know, you get a bad gate pick for the main. I don't know what he got in the main. But
Mhm.
then it's like, okay, next thing you know, the second round has come and gone. Now I think it's a week off, and then you have Daytona. And then once Daytona happens, it's like the season's basically, in my mind, it's like the season's halfway over.
Yeah.
So it's really, and now this is mentally how I would frame it in the past, which
Mhm.
was a bad way to do it. But it would feel like a momentum of a negative spiral a little bit if the season
Mhm.
started in that way. And because then you would
Yeah.
start to get a little bit anxious that you're running out of time to then prove yourself.
Yeah.
And because I was watching the race in that way too, and they showed Thrasher a little bit, because I think Thrasher had a good heat race. They didn't show Thrasher a single time on TV last weekend. And
Mm.
it is so easy to have a few races go by and like you just don't do quite as well as you should, and then next thing you know, 7 rounds and you're 8 rounds and your season's done.
Yeah.
And especially when you're an East Coast only type of person. When I did Supercross only, it just feels like everything that you've worked for is relying on
just a couple
nights. And it can turn into a lot of pressure. Allie made a comment because she's been wanting to watch lately, which is funny. And
shout I don't mind it. Okay.
She asked some annoying questions, but not that many annoying questions. Like she's pretty cute.
What's the most annoying things that she's asked you?
Oh, no, it's like obvious stuff that she'll then know the answer to. She'll get guys confused. Like very obvious situations, she'll get people confused where I'm like, you know who that is?
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. She'll have a brain fart every once in a while. If I can think of some other funny ones. She's pretty cute and she's pretty knowledgeable. Every once in a while though, she'll ask something where I'm just like, what?
Yeah, that's why I was curious. I'm like, I feel like Allie knows, like she knows the game, you know?
Well, because she was watching Faulkner in that LCQ, and she goes, "He doesn't look very good on the bike. Why does he look like hunched?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, he does."
Okay,
and I said, he does have that Alpine Stars inflatable, wacky whaling inflatable tube man setup.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right.
That stuff is crazy. Yeah. I think he's one of the guys that has that. Yeah. Him. I know Reed's been testing it out a lot, and some of the guys in Europe. I had one in my road racing suit for years, last couple of years. And man, it's such a cool piece of technology. I will say when it does deploy, scares the crap out of you.
Oh, really?
Because I had a fart once in my suit. And I saw the lights like beep, 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 like trying to engage. I'm like, no. I had to like, I'm like, dude, I was like, no, I just had a lot of beans for lunch, man. But like, no, like when it does actually go off, dude, you really feel like the charge of air that goes through the suit, and it's all telemetry based and a change in acceleration and a bunch of nerdy stuff. But yeah, it's freaky. But having had a crash in that suit, and seeing the difference from how we're used to crashing in motocross, where maybe you have a chest protector, maybe you don't, maybe it's just a roost guard, and just feeling like I'm in a bubble suit, like none of this, I'm literally going, head over heel the whole time, and I'm not really feeling much, it's a pretty cool setup.
Yeah, that's nice. And I was wondering,
until you got to pick up the prototype bike that you just crashed. That's not good, but that's a different story.
When she asked that, I go, maybe that chest protector, the inflatable thing, is making him look a little bit hunched, but I know that he's definitely ridden in the past where like he has that little bit of a hunch that you don't want. But it was interesting that she picked up on that. And then 2 other riders she picked up on that with as well, with Hampshire and Mcadoo, kind of looking the same way in that they looked a little bit rounded with their back, kind of like hunchback, a little bit arched in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So she's figuring it out. She's got that Moto Academy technique just dialed in. Speaking of not having the Moto Academy technique dialed in, Cameron Mcadoo, what do we do?
Man, I don't know, man. This is so I almost want to break this up into 2 parts, where I feel like Mcadoo is such a great, nice guy. You know him personally, hard worker, good person for sure. Rides a motorcycle very, very well. He's got a lot of raw speed. He is a fast rider. We've seen him be in the points hunt multiple times. We've seen him crash pretty big multiple times. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of this comes down to approach for some of these sections. So maybe his whole racecraft on the track isn't too bad. But there are moments when you see that a technique kind of goes away from him a little bit, or he gets into a situation where he can't correct it with that proper technique, at all. And then we end up seeing these tumultuous moments of like, holy crap, he's down the whoops, or oh my gosh, he just cartwheeled over, a tunnel jump or something that just goes really crazy. And another thing I'm just curious about is like, what is this dark cloud that PC has over their camp? Because
I didn't even think about that.
For 20 years, they were Star Yamaha. Like if you were a 250 racer, you might be able to get a win here or there, but you weren't getting a title because you knew it was the PC guys. They had the best bikes, the best riders. The team support was just second to none. And now it's like, man, they have all these elements. They have a great bike. They have a solid team. They've got a pedigree of just dozens of championships. What is it that in like recent years their riders are getting hurt, or they're having issues with bike setup, or or just the Yamahas are just beating them on pure horsepower? Like what is the thing that is holding them back?
Well, off the top of my head, I can think of a lot of the riders that they've had that have a lot of issues technically.
Mm,
Mcadoo, Faulkner, Marshbanks, Kitchen. I could probably go on and on. A lot of those guys ride similar.
mhm,
Marshbanks' issue is that his knees would be too far forward, especially being tall. He'd have kind of sloppy footwork at times. I haven't seen him
mhm,
ride in a little while. Kitchen has kind of an arch back, and he's tall. Faulkner has that hunchback. Mcadoo can get that hunchback at times. If I were a team manager or team owner, my goal would be to try to get everybody to ride the same, the correct
mm.
way, in my opinion. Which, if
Okay.
you think the writing is on the wall at this point, where you watch Cole Davies and it's like, who wouldn't want to ride in that way? Who would choose any of the other ways when you can watch somebody that makes it look that easy? Or who wouldn't want to ride
Okay.
like Jet? Like,
Yeah.
who is actually consciously choosing, I want to ride like, can't think of a good example here, but like a Barsha
Mm,
instead of a Jet? Well, then somebody in your corner has to tell you, hey, maybe that's not a good idea. Like, yes, he's
mm.
amazing, but you can't replicate that whole package. You can replicate the Jet package. That's actually quite simple to do.
Yeah.
You can replicate the
Is
Cole Davies package. Quite simple to do.
is yeah, so I'm thinking about somebody like a Faulkner who is used to winning their whole amateur career, riding a certain way. They've had trainers in the past tell them what to do and what not to do. Is it hard for them to not only break those habits that they've had since 50s of riding a certain way, maybe elbows down like myself, or hunched back or something, or ankles, pretty much being on the foot pegs the whole time, whatever it is. Do they get into a situation where, number one, it's hard for them to do, and number two, it's like, well, I've been winning my whole life up to this point doing the same thing, and I don't want to change it? Like, do you think it's both of those things? Do you think it's one of those things that prevents them from really being able to implement that correct way of riding?
Yes, I would say it's short term thinking in the sense that they don't really have an option. At least in their minds, they definitely don't have an option.
Mm,
Because to do it correctly, you would have to take a year off, probably. You would have to, if you didn't take a year off, you'd have to accept not doing as well, result
mm,
wise, for a year, because you'd have to slow down. Like,
yeah.
and that's the problem is when you watch McAdoo, he's not ever willing to slow down. And I think that attitude, I talk about this at class a lot. I say, all the mantras that you've heard in life of like, never give up and just go harder, just one more this or one more that, or go until you throw up, or like, I don't know, all of the things, just like keep going.
Hmm.
Is that really applicable in motocross? Like in
Mm,
Supercross especially? I would say probably no. I mean, if you want to absolutely annihilate yourself and just keep getting hurt or killed, sure, good luck, man. But
mm,
like when you're on a 200-pound dirt bike, I would argue no. Have a little bit more of a mindset of, hey, I'm going to put my ego aside a little bit. I'm going to do every inch of this correctly and however long it takes me to do it correctly. And the speed is a byproduct of that. I really, really, and I could debate somebody on this all day long.
hmm.
I am really a firm believer that speed is a byproduct of technique. It's
Okay.
not the other way around.
Mm,
It's just like somebody that's like, oh, well, I want to be happy. It's like, okay, well, what steps are you taking to be? Are you just forcing yourself to try to be happy? Because that doesn't work.
yeah.
Happiness
Yeah.
is a byproduct of all of the other qualities that you would
Yep.
want to learn and have discipline to be able to practice. And the speed is the same thing. It's like the you have to be patient enough to just let the speed come in time with doing the
Mm,
technique the right way. Um, because I think that's the only explanation for watching a person like McAdoo that you just see, like he almost looped out a couple laps before that, where Carmichael had to interrupt somebody that was talking because he was like, whoa, he almost looped out. Uh, Now, I can only speak from my perspective, but when I ride, I don't almost loop out.
Mm.
You know, I don't cartwheel myself and get knocked out by my handlebars in the whoops. Now, I'm not going that fast.
Yeah.
That's the obvious counter argument to that. But yeah, I don't know. I just, when I see that, I feel the first thing as soon as I see him just absolutely laid out on the track, the first thing I think about is his wife and his mom. That's the first thing I think of, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I've actually been with both of them, coincidentally, just with both of them during a couple of his big crashes. The one he had, I think it was the day that he annihilated himself at Atlanta. And there maybe was another one where I just so happened to kind of be standing right next to his mom and his wife and just seeing the panic that it creates and knowing the panic that it creates. That was the first place that my mind went. Yeah. And then my mind went to how many times is he going to do this before either he just quits or just makes the change that he needs to make so that it stops happening, or he doesn't have that opportunity and it gets all taken away from him because he has one that finally ends it.
Yeah. It's tough.
I hate to like have a hard or a bit of more of a stance on this, but that's because I am passionate about when I'm at these classes, I see that type of behavior for so many people on lower levels, of course, but slow down, slow everything down. The mistakes should be less. Of course, everybody makes mistakes, but they shouldn't be that frequent. It's not coincidence and it's not chance that you keep just having huge ones. Yeah. Right. That can be tricky too, because he's a man of faith. Like he talks about God and he's, you know, it's, I guess, sometimes easy to have the perspective of like, okay, these things are supposed to happen to me so that I can use it to help evolve and get to that next level and be able to like, this is a test. Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do have the control, and that you have to, maybe it's a sign that, hey, you should take some time to stop going fast, throw the stopwatch in the garbage can, and fix your technique a little bit.
Yeah. We see other sports do that too. I mean, we see people that like, you know, sit out a season to be able to perfect things or to rehab or get something fixed with their body or something like that. I don't think it's out of the ordinary, or wouldn't be out of the ordinary for some of our racers in our sport to do the same thing, or just to say that, you know what, this is going to be a building year for me. If a win comes, phenomenal. I want to go out there and represent my team and myself, my own brand very well. But if I want to have a run at this thing until I'm like 33, 34, which is a new thing, which is you can do that in this sport now if you're doing it right. We're seeing
Mcadoo is so young. He's got so much time.
He's so young. Exactly. And like you just mentioned, Malcolm Stewart, 32. This is probably the best Eli Tomac we've ever seen. And the dude's what, 34, 35? Chisholm's out there still locking in points and getting paychecks. I mean, there is longevity in this sport if you do it right. And if you just look at that goalpost of like, man, I want to go until I'm 33, 34, like great, but we have to do it the right way first, which is what you're saying, and putting in those proper steps and stuff like that. So I hope that the riders don't have the blinders on of like, man, I only have 2 seasons to do this and to make a name for myself, and I have to go as fast as I can and go crazy. I want them to obviously put in the work and like look at the next thing that you have to do to be able to be better at your sport, but also, it's a long road. It's a long career. You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success at every stop and can push that end date out as far as possible. So I hope more riders do that, man. That's really
it's
good.
It's hard though, because you're to a certain extent as well a product of the environment, in that if he's surrounded by a lot of industry people, a lot of times, I don't know if he is or is not, but that's not like, if I said what I just said to you to anybody in the industry, barely anybody's agreeing with me, right? Like if that last thing gets clipped and put on social media, people will want to shred me to pieces because people don't think that way, right? People are very desperate and short-sighted, and especially this industry. People are
Yeah.
closed-minded and short-sighted and act out of desperation and lack and you name it. All of the things that you would want to do the exact opposite of.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard. Hopefully that's again why I'm passionate, because I just want to change people's perspectives a little bit. The first thing I say at riders meeting at class is, guys, today I used to say 50%. I want you to go 50% at absolute most. Then this year I changed to 30%. I'm like, I want you to go slower than you've gone ever.
Yep.
On purpose. Go as slow as you can go so that you can actually think and make the right decisions and create change and new habit and try to break old habits while you're out there. Because if you ride 50%, 70%, 90%, 100%, you are out there doing nothing but just repeating the same old habits that you've been executing that you wanted to change in the first place. Why else are you at this class, right?
Yep.
So go 30%. And as soon as rider meeting is finished, and then they have to go out for their free practice to do their warm up, nobody goes 30%. And so I have to pull them all off again. And this is every time. And I go, guys, did we try to go 30%? Some of them go, yeah, I tried. I said, that wasn't. Go slower.
Yep.
And you're going to have to, just like forming any other habit, you riding 80, 90, 100% is your habit. So you're going to have to think consciously about slowing down when you're out on the track. And you're going to have to remind yourself all the time. When I do it a lot is when I take those Starks and I go ride in the woods, because I know the consequence of like hitting a tree at high speed and I don't want anything to do with it. It is easy when I go out there and my mind kind of goes empty and I'm riding for 20 minutes. Next thing you know, I check in with myself and I go, and like 20 minutes of kind of building that tempo and working into speed without thinking.
Yep.
All of a sudden I go, whoa. I'm going too fast. Like,
back it down,
slow down. Yep. And this is relevant to anybody can take that information and use it, because it is so easy for us to have a habit of going out there. Like, who gets arm pump? A lot of people get arm pump. Arm pump happens because you're riding too close to, or you're surpassing that ceiling in your limit.
Yeah.
And usually people are living in that zone of just being afraid and sketchy and having arm pump the whole time. Speaking of arm
pump, it's almost like a state of like desperation, almost like I have to go fast. I have to like do this well. And that's a good point. Yeah. It's hard, man. We're stubborn. We are wired one way: speed and going fast, like that's what we want. So it is easy to see why people, automatically the minute their helmet goes on and their bike fires up is, we are here. We're Ricky Bobby, dude. We're first or last, Yeah.
Cause who has ever in most people's career or lives growing up as they're learning said, slow down, right? It's probably not as frequent as I would hope that it would be. It's like not
track owners in the pits, but that's about it.
Yeah. Right.
That's about it, dude.
But speaking of arm pump, they did say on the broadcast that Hymas just had arm pump surgery. Did you catch that?
I heard that. Yep.
So that's interesting. And they also said that somebody else didn't get arm pump surgery, but they were getting Botox in their arms. Did you hear that?
Did not hear that. I heard of Botox to prevent sweating. I did not hear Botox to prevent arm pump. And you had the surgery, AJ. Walk us through a little bit of like what that's like, what it's supposed to address, the downtime and all that other stuff, because we hear it a lot, but they don't really go into detail about it.
No, they never do. And the problem with the surgery is that the surgery is technically temporary, because what they do is, I don't know if you'd be able to, definitely not with all my tattoos, but they went in orthoscopically. I bet you that Hymas went to the same doctor that I went to, because all of the guys were going to the same doctor to get it done. Somewhere in Quad Cities Airport is where I flew into, so I'm not sure what state I ended up in. Orthoscopically here, and then they just make little like micro slits in your muscle fascia. So basically your muscle, and I'm not this is going to be slightly inaccurate somewhere along the way, but picture your muscle just having like this, like a sausage has that sleeve on the outside, basically. Your muscle has that sleeve around the outside of your muscle. So they create micro slits in it. The idea is that your blood can circulate a bit better instead of just going into your arm, getting stuck because that muscle fascia is so tight around that muscle. Now, when I got that surgery done, this was in like, I don't remember what year, 2018, for the first 30 days, invincible. That's why they said in the thing, like, Hymus felt like a new man, because I was like, oh my God, I can ride as hard as I want and my arms aren't getting tight at all. Like, this is the thing that's limited me my entire life. I couldn't even get my heart rate up because my arms would get tight before my heart rate would get up. So imagine how frustrating that is, just being on the track, watching guys go by you and your heart rate's at like 130. You're not even breathing hard. And you're like, I could easily go faster right now, but I can't freaking feel my handlebars. So I can't feel my fingers. I'm using 4 fingers on the clutch right now to try to pull this thing in. I got 4 fingers on the front brake because I just have no use of my hands. So for the first 30 days after that surgery, I literally was doing 30-minute motos on my Supercross track. Like I was and I'm like, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to kill it.
How long was the surgery and how long were you out for like the healing process?
Pretty quick. So I think I was on the bike 7 to 10 days after the surgery, something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. Now, what I didn't know and I wasn't informed of enough, and the doctor really didn't emphasize this enough, is I didn't do a good enough job of really breaking that scar tissue up, massaging my arms, rolling my arms out post-surgery. So what happens is those little slits that they create, well, they heal, and they heal with scar tissue. So in fact, it's actually probably worse and more tight than what it was before. So the first 30 days, amazing. The next 30 days, now here comes January, here comes A1, the season, and the arm pump's just right back. And it's back to, now I'm like mentally screwed because I thought it was gone. Now it's come back and it feels even worse than it ever was. So let's hope that's not the case for Chance, but that was my experience with arm pump surgery. I'd be curious if anybody else has got it, because that's usually something people keep kind of under wraps or they don't really tell their story.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think road racing, it was a pretty common deal. Like I remember hearing like Ben Spies did it and a few other guys, were doing it after they heard about that, and it was pretty public. But yeah, not too many guys talk about it in moto, or at least until like they're at the tail end of their career or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I walked into the doctor's office and I'm filling out the paperwork, and the door opens and in walks Jace Owen to get his surgery, and we look at each other and I go. He goes, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "What are the?"
You say it first.
That's. So but I was really interested by the Botox thing. So what the heck, Botox in the arms? I want to try that now. Like, I don't understand why that would work, because that's supposed to tighten your face when you put Botox in your face. But I don't know what that's doing.
I couldn't begin, dude. Anatomy is not my thing, man. I'm mechanical. Biomed. I almost threw up in that class. So
no Botox yet.
No Botox. Thankfully, black don't crack, so I don't think I'll have to worry about that. So we're good. But yeah, I'm curious about that. Botox is really to prevent arm pump. That's a new one.
I will say it, and I was like, huh? Botox? What is it?
There's a lot to be said for what you mentioned of like rolling out the muscle. Because even like. We're technically vet riders now. Like just rolling out your hips or thighs before you ride, after, get like the muscle loosened up and blood flowing through. Like that makes a really big difference. So I wonder if people would start to see, like, not even going super invasive, but just do a quick foam roll, get the forearms nice and loosened up. Get your lower back, hips, thighs, all that stuff. I wonder if they would see like that plus proper technique, maybe slowing it down. When I need to. I wonder if that would help people feel not only less arm pump, but that turns into more confidence on the bike, man. If you can go up there and you're like, holy crap, it's 10, 15 minutes. I'm not really that tired. My breathing's under control. I feel like I'm in control of this moment. That's just going to breed amazing confidence for people. The more confident you feel, the more comfortable you feel, the less you're going to hold on tight. Which means you can focus on proper technique more, which is like a continuous circle of I feel better, I'm going to ride better. I feel better, I'm going to ride better,
And it's that's the same conversation that can be had for a C or B level rider locally and a top pro like a Mcadoo.
Yes.
It's the same exact conversations and the same exact problems and struggles that people have. It really is. And that's another thing I say at class too. I'm like, I trained and rode side by side with Jet and Hunter Lawrence at their peak. I mean, Jet won the East Coast Supercross Championship that year, or West Coast. Hunter won his coast. I'm pretty sure Hunter then went and won the 250 outdoor championship. Jet had a perfect season in 450 outdoors, and then I'm pretty sure they also went and won Motocross of Nations, or at least they won their motos, or Jet did. So the fastest riders in the world, I rode with them every single day in that preseason leading into that year. And what I was so not surprised, but I was just so happy to see is that it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. They were talking about and worrying about and doing the same things that any normal average person would. It wasn't some highly top secret confidential things going on, or they weren't trying this and experimenting with this thing. Like, I mean, it was like a couple of average Joes going out there riding in circles in the grass every once in a while. Like, very, very, very basic, very basic. It's not rocket science. But anyway, I hope Mcadoo is okay.
Same.
The reason I'm hard on you, Mcadoo, is because I like you and you are a good person. I want to see you create change if there's an opportunity to do so. And I'm not the person to say it, but this is my podcast. I could say whatever the heck I want.
I like that. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, I know you saw it, was like Max Anstey. I feel like he sort of got gypped a little bit on that red flag restart. Yeah, a lot of it. I really think the rules should be updated, because the race was pretty much over. He had a huge lead. I would be upset if I was him. I thought he handled it like an absolute professional, like a gentleman. But he did throw in a little jab towards towards
He's
the
fired.
team manager.
He's fired. It's gotta be.
That was pretty insane, because we were doing the live watch party on my channel, and we were saying, like, because me and Jackson were like, dude, he's gonna say something in a super thick Cockney accent about how he was gypped and this is dumb. And it's, and the rules should be changed. But he was like, oh, it is what it is. We're all professional. But if my team manager's not here, he can't say crap, and he better show. And I was like, Jesus, dude, that's a complete 180 from what I thought he would say. What's your take on that? And have you had a team manager where you're like, I do not like this guy, and I really want to blow him out on live on TV, and I hope it's not the same one that we make fun of on Track Walk. But
I couldn't believe when he said that. I was like, oh.
Holy
and
crap,
Allie goes, what did he just say? It wasn't that bad, but I mean, now the first thing I thought, and I don't know the Bobby Reagan person at all.
Yeah.
But I hear the stories and you see the way that he's put the team together. You got to imagine that's a pretty ego-driven individual. So, and I picture him when Max is saying that, I'm picturing just Bobby Reagan at home watching this on TV, just blood red mad, just absolutely furious, because it was like a hit to the ego a little bit for anybody to call him out.
Yeah.
From a rider's perspective, yeah, it's extremely frustrating, because you have a lot of times, and many, many times in my career, you have people thinking that you don't care. And it's like, okay, there might be other symptoms or other things that you're seeing that might be making you think that, but why am I here? Who am I doing it for?
Yeah.
I'm doing it for me.
Yeah.
Of course I care.
Yep.
So there's nothing more frustrating than when somebody thinks that you don't want to win, or you don't care. Of course you do, but it's like maybe there's something mentally holding you back, to where subconsciously you're having these behaviors or doing these things and saying these things because subconsciously maybe you don't believe it, or subconsciously you're just on different wavelength. So it's like, as a manager, as a team owner, instead of saying, oh, you don't care, no. You should try to get into their head a little bit and try to level with them and figure out why they would subconsciously say something that would make you think that, and try to help them think the right way. Because this is a 60-year-old man, and this is a 28-year-old, 30-year-old kid that's probably just started to change the framework of the way he thinks a little bit. Because for me, it wasn't until 27, 28 where I started to learn how to think. For some people, it's much later than that. But it's very frustrating. I just couldn't believe when he said it on the broadcast, and I was like, ooh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Ooh.
I'm like, Max, you're on the best bike you've ever been on, buddy. Like, don't ruin it for yourself. Like, let's stay in that thing a little longer.
Yeah.
But
oh my goodness,
that's proof right there that, like, you couldn't pay me any amount of money to ride for a team.
It's tough
because I'm not going to report to some guy that's telling me if he thinks I care or not, or telling me that I should be doing this because this was right for me. You can guide me, absolutely, but don't. No, and that's that. Like that was kind of some of that. That was Max's frustration with what had just happened, combined with the frustration, probably a little bit of that. And just the look on his face, I'm like, oh, he's pissed. But I guess to that situation. Yeah, that sucks. I mean, he dominated that whole race. He was like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 seconds up.
Yep.
Rode flawlessly, wire to wire. And then imagine being in his shoes. That red flag comes out and you know that you got green flag, white flag, checkered flag, which they messed up, by the way. And green flag, white flag, checkered flag with somebody freaking right on my butt. I'd much rather be the guy in second place on that restart than the guy in first.
All day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Think about.
I would have almost let
him.
him.
Cash.
I would have. Imagine that if Max was like just pushing his bike backwards, which by the way I've done on a single file restart because this was the last year that I did Supercross. It was at my home race. So it was either Gillette or MetLife. I think it was MetLife. And they red flag restart it, and I am loving the track, but I'm hating. I'm just was in a battle that like the people were sketchy, and I'm like, just get me away from this. So when they did the red flag restart, I literally got off my bike and just rolled it all the way to the back of the line. And the AMA guy's like, whoa, he's like, no, you're up here. And I go, nah, I'm having fun out there. I just want to go enjoy the track.
Yeah. And
the other riders like beside me were like, man, you are so lucky to be able to just go out there and just do that and make that decision.
I have to eat tonight. I need this money. But then really, it's like it is. That's the ultimate dash for cash because like it's $100,000 like win bonus. I know for 450, 100 or 150 for 450. I'm sure it's not as much or maybe around there for 250. $100,000, I should say. Like those are some stakes right there, dude. Like if I would 100%. If I was Ansty, I mean, obviously I'm not in that position, so 2020 hindsight, right? I would have almost like let Kitchen by and just stalked him the whole like 2-3 lap sprint and then figured out where to make my pass at,
The tough thing
having
is
somebody breathe down your neck like that is like that gets me. It kills me.
Oh yeah, and it's like a game of chess at like 210 beats per minute of just yeah,
am I outside? Am I inside? Do I defend? Do I get momentum
so
here?
hard. I will say he did a really good he read all of the moves correctly. I think Ansty did. Like there wasn't a thing that he did where I was like, you blew it. You should have done this. I think he played it really well. And I think that Kitchen played it really well. And Kitchen just threw in a couple of heater laps. Like he just straight up passed them and yarded them in that 1.5 lap time period. I was more concerned with Hampshire getting involved and Hampshire it just exploding all of them or taking out Ansty and ruining Ansty's race after you just put in that such a good race. So for me, I was watching, I'm like, Max, just like second's fine. I know it's a bummer. You just got 50, 75, 100K stripped away from you. Like that's not cool, but you're winning the points. Like let second's good. Second's good. Anything else happened in 250 that we're forgetting to talk about?
I don't think anything too glaring. We mentioned Faulkner, which is good. I definitely wanted to get some words in about him. But no, I don't think there's any major fireworks, at least this weekend. So
I don't think so. Okay, so 450. Did you watch time qualifying at all?
Did not.
Okay, I turned it on for like 2 minutes, and when I turned it on, it was Webb that was out there, and right away, I was like, "Uh-oh." I didn't even know what his time was, but I was just watching him, and usually the reason I cheer for some of these other guys over Webb, typically or almost always, is because when I watch Webb ride, there's nothing really that he does that like makes me want to watch. Like, it's just not. He's not a nice person to watch ride usually. He gets the job done, but I don't watch him and go, "Ooh, that's nice to look at." Where
for the flash and the flare and the
or just the straight up just doing it the right way, like a Sexton, or where it looks like art sometimes. When I watch Webb, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's doing it," but it's just to me, it doesn't do it for me. I was watching him in time qualifying, and he was tossing, he was scrubbing coming out of the sand. He was flicking it back the other way off the finish line. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
I said, this isn't going to be good, because if he is doing that,
Yeah.
and I could just tell he had like more spice in his riding than normal.
Yeah.
It was almost a guarantee that when I watched that, I'm like, well, Webb's winning.
Yeah. No, you could see that pretty early on too in the main event too. Like he had there's like a type of confidence you have when you're riding, and just where you're putting your motorcycle and how you're approaching certain obstacles that you can tell. We talked about that the first ride that Joe Shimoda had this year. We talked about it in the way that Tomac rides. Like there's just an air of confidence that translates into your riding, and Webb had that pretty early in the main event. Obviously, everyone's a Kenny fan. I think even Webb to some extent is a Kenny fan. So you're like, man, is Kenny going to get up there and win? But you could just see the way that Webb was attacking the track. It's like, this guy is feeling comfortable and confident. His lines are good. He's going to be a thorn in Kenny's side, at the very minimum.
And Kenny did a great job. I mean, he just looked like it wasn't one of those tracks where he looked spectacularly good, Kenny.
Yeah.
But he looked fine. He definitely looked fine. And then he also did a great job, like when Webb started to really make the attack, there was one thing when they hit the finish and Ken went to the inside and really closed the door the one time, because he just knew that Webb was going to dive him that one section. Such a good job. Like he played it so well.
Yeah.
And he did exactly everything right. As soon as Webb got him, I said, all right, Roxon's got to pass him back in the whoops. That'll be his only hope.
Yep.
Like he's got to make a run in the whoops. You could see Roxon tried. He just wasn't close enough. And then after that, I knew it was going to be Webb's. But yeah, you could just tell. And I wonder if the average person watching was able to tell that too. Like Webb was just moving the bike around more than normal in like a confidence type of way. Like, okay, I got this one.
Yeah, for sure.
He just looked really good.
Yeah, I think he really did. And it just adds more parity to this class. I think this is one of the only times in recent Supercross history where we've had such a deep field of winners. This is almost unprecedented. I mean, early 2000s, you could kind of say like, oh, when Ricky wasn't there, or like, before Stu moved up to the 250 class, we kind of had pretty crazy swappable podiums, here and there. But to this extent, man, this is pretty spectacular. We've had so many winners, so many great guys that can win, so many past champions.
Has anybody won twice yet this year?
I think Chase did.
Did he?
I think.
Oh yeah, because he won A1 and then he won the Triple Crown, didn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe.
But no, it was great. I did get flashes of like, I forget what year it was, like 2020 or 2021, where it was the Webb and Kenny show, and he was always all over Kenny and would like catch him in like the last 3 laps to go and pass him like super disrespectfully, and do some crazy things. I almost got flashes of like PTSD where I'm like, oh no, Kenny, run, Kenny, run, Kenny, So
and those ones, I feel like Ken didn't play those ones perfectly necessarily. This one, I felt like he did. He played it really, really well. It was just Webb was just a little bit faster. How about Sexton just trying to time the gate?
Yeah, what was that?
Maybe it was
timing the gate. It feels like that, right? Because I didn't hear anyone say like, "Oh yeah, it flinched, which made him go." Like usually there's a couple people who are like, "Yeah, I saw it flinch, I felt it flinch," but it seems like he was trying to time the gate. There's only one person that can time a gate well, and that's Mike Alessi. Leave it to him. Leave it to Alessi. Like that is such a scary game to play, because not only are you just praying for like this 1 in a million chance, if you don't get it right, which chances are you won't, it ruins your night. It's so hard in this pack, this depth of field on tracks like this, which aren't like a Glendale where you have a big footprint, you can make a lot of time, stuff like that. It's multiple lines. It's really tough to be able to get back to the front of the pack. It's hard to get to the top 5, yet alone get to the front. You know what I mean? So it's such a scary game to play if you're not rocking an 800 on your number plate.
That was the only explanation too, really, because I watched the replay a couple times and I was like, oh, he just went.
Yeah.
It didn't even hesitate. Like, I mean, he just went straight into the gate. There's been a couple times where I've tried to time it and I knew like as I started to go, like I had to pull the clutch in and then reset,
Yep.
and because I didn't fully commit because I knew I wasn't timing it right. I mean, he just went, and then Carmichael. Did you hear Carmichael's comment? So he runs into the gate and then he crashes on the first lap because he ran into somebody.
Yep.
And Carmichael was then talking about Webb, and he goes, Webb wouldn't run into the gate, and he certainly wouldn't crash after that on the first lap. It was just kind of like a slide to Sexton. I was like, oh. But it's, I mean, yeah, Sexton rode unbelievably good. He would have won that race, but
he would have.
To catch up to third from dead last after hitting the gate and then crashing also on the first lap. That's nuts. He wasted no time. Like when he would catch somebody, he would just immediately pass them on. By the way, that wasn't an easy track to pass people on because it was
correct.
Everybody was doing the same thing. He rode incredibly well, but I am so curious, like to just know to get inside these guys' heads a little bit and just see what they're thinking or what type of, like what goes on in their mind. I see there's been some stuff of Sexton posted a picture of him meditating, and he's talked about meditation a little bit this year. So I wonder how new that is to him. I wonder how still he is. Like I wonder where he's at in his process of like, learning how to think and shut the brain off a little bit.
That's interesting. A lot of riders in other motorsport disciplines, they do meditation. Like it may not be like the, namaste and the legs across or stuff, but like they have times where they sit there and they're just going through the racetrack in their mind, or they're going through how they're going to handle their equipment, or how they're going to, correct this one mistake from a previous session. If you look at MotoGP, for example, years and years ago, like you'll see Valentino Rossi literally sitting there on like holding his foot peg, crouched down, just going through the track in his mind. You'll see Formula One racers doing that same thing. And I think it's something that should be adopted more, as you're doing your warm up. We've done our warm up routines for Supercross in the past, but I think incorporating like, okay, I know this corner's giving me trouble in time qualifying. I'm going to go outside here, inside, tire tap, watch out because someone always comes up right here on me, and just it mentally prepares you for what you're about to do, especially if it's something where it's high intensity, your heart rate's up, you're not going to be able to think as smoothly. Like any practice you can get before you're out there mentally, I think is something that's good. So the fact that Sexton's implementing that into his program, I think that's super smart, and it probably allows him to be able to make passes like he made, because you said they're not doing anything that deviates from the same routine for this track. They're double in, gonna go 3, then 2 out. There's no other way to do it, so finding passes or places where you can make up time, it's a mental toll while doing it at speed and while you're trying to move forward also. So I bet you that meditation he's doing, it's like pre-racing in his mind a little bit.
I wonder, what I'd be most curious to know is what stage of mindfulness Sexton is at. Like, is he in the early stages of he's just been introduced and it's kind of more out of like desperation, or maybe lack would be a better word than desperation, of like, I need to figure out how to think, like I've got to work on this. Or I wonder if he's really starting to pull the real value from that meditation, whether it's visualization, like you just said.
Yeah.
That's huge. I was just listening to something yesterday where there was a study that was done where they had one test group of people play the piano and learn the piano a couple days a week for an extended period of time. And then they had the other test group visualize playing the piano or learning whatever it was, but they weren't actually physically playing it. They were just visualizing and taught to visualize these certain things. And at the end of this study, they played equally as well. I think that the group that spent more time visualizing as opposed to playing was the group that actually performed better and learned more.
Yeah. Yep.
Just by mentally rehearsing it. But I know I went through the reason I say that is I went through my stages of when I was first introduced to like, oh, okay, the mind's a tool. Maybe I should be trying to figure out how to access it and use it a little bit. It was at the beginning, it hurt me more because I then began overthinking things even worse. And then it was a little bit of a spiral because I was like, oh, well, now I even tried to do this right and this still didn't work. And so it almost like sent me the opposite direction for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it took me many years to then get back to the point where those little things that I was taught at the beginning by, he was a Marine fighter pilot. And then he was actually, like, he was a hypnotist. And so I was seeing this hypnotist. And it wasn't until like 10 years later that I realized how many things that had actually stuck with me in the long run that subconsciously were kind of plugged in by him. But I was consciously fighting it so hard that I wouldn't, none of that subconscious stuff was allowed to sink in, because that's what hypnosis is like they get you down to a certain wavelength from beta, which is like you and I having a conversation, to alpha, to theta, which is how you hypnotize somebody because your analytical mind goes away. So basically the door to your subconscious mind opens and everything is downloadable at that point. So it's like Maeve or Millie right now at their age, 0 to 7, babies are in theta the whole time.
Yeah.
So that's why they learn things so quickly. That's why you have to be very careful about what they're surrounded by, what they're watching, what you're doing, what you're saying, because unlike us, where we have a filter and an analytical mind to be able to kind of separate a little bit what goes into or gets downloaded into our program, these kids are just downloading everything that they're seeing. And that's what a hypnotist does, is they pull you into this kind of trance-like state to where they can make you really suggestible and then try to get some of that stuff to stick into your subconscious. And essentially that's what meditation is you can self-hypnotize, is you focus on your breathing, you slow your breathing down, and the goal is quite literally to go from beta to alpha and drop down closer into theta, so you can auto suggest certain things to your subconscious, whether that's a visualization of plugging into your subconscious. Okay, this is where I'm gonna go, this is what it's gonna look like, and I'm seeing it in my mind. So I'm curious, because when I see him sitting like that, I'm like, oh, I just want to have a conversation. And I'd be able to tell. You'd be able to tell in an hour, 2-hour conversation with him where he's at, Sexton.
Yeah.
Really, I'm super curious. Okay, so he hits the gate, he crashes, comes back to third. Fantastic. Webb wins. Anything else happen 450 wise that was exciting?
It's just a cool battle with Kenny, him and Webb. That was really cool to see. I know we had a debate last weekend on lappers, what people thought about consequences and what should happen when things like that occur in the track. And I'm not sure if you covered it at all in the pod the last couple of weeks, but
and we had a theory. So let me ask your opinion, because Kenny C18 and myself are kind of talking about a little bit, maybe what the solution could be. I kind of agreed with what his idea was. Before I say what his idea was, what are your thoughts, or what do you think is a fix, if there is one, to the lappers situation?
I think it should be like multifaceted. I think there should be, they should not throw blues as early as they do. Number one, I think that drives you racers crazy. I'm sure the avid fan can see, like, holy crap, Kenny's still, 4 turns away and they're waving blues, at the guys in 15th, 16th, 17th. I think there should be a monetary
fine
course of action. Fine. Yeah. For stuff like that. I think if you impede the racing at all per an official's judgment, I think they should incur $500 fine, $1,000 fine, something like that. I don't think a points-based system would really affect the people who it's targeted towards as much as hitting their pockets. I also think that there should be something in the rule book that states, like, you cannot advance or gain position. So if you see the guy in front of you, you guys are battling for 19th, and someone's come up behind you, he pulls over, buddy, you better pull over. Or at the very minimum, like, once the leaders go by, you let that guy go right past you and you resume the battle. So I think it should be something like that. Same way, if when a rider goes off the track, you can't advance, you can't gain position, or if you do, let the guys go around you, and boom, you can resume racing. I think it should be sort of multifaceted like that.
I think that's good. I heard a quick clip of Nicoletti talking about kind of that similar idea of it should be like a Red Cross where they have to like roll and let the guys go by, not pass, don't do the jumps, let the guys go by. I'm like, I don't know if that would be the safest option.
Yeah, rolling's tough because like rolling could be kind of a danger too. If you start seeing a blue and someone gets so afraid they're going to get fined, they might lock up the binders and then messes up somebody's line behind them. And I don't think rolling's good, but no, I mean some sort of penalty, you know.
Yeah.
Better flagging would help you guys out in multiple different areas.
The flagging
not just
is
blue
important.
Flags.
That's a huge key to it, because that's what I said to Kenny is I said, Kenny, do you know how many times I've had that blue thing waving when they're half a track behind me,
and then you forget.
Or you just don't know if the crying wolf, so to speak. So you don't know when to believe if it's actually accurate or not. So then then you experience enough times where you let a guy go by when you shouldn't have, and they were in your race, where then everybody around you is like, just keep racing. When you start getting lapped, just keep racing. That's what everybody tells you. So then, because you should, or else you ruin your own race. What Kenny's idea was, and I kind of agreed, and I think it would fix it, is to just go to 18 or 20 rider main events. I think even 18, if you cut the 4 guys out, what happens on the first lap and the first 2 laps is what creates to where the guys get lapped in the first place. The last place guy after the end of the first lap is probably nearly 20 seconds behind. Not because he's 20 seconds slower, but because there's just too many freaking people out there.
Yeah.
And you get stuck in a traffic jam.
Yeah.
And
I think, that's I see the mirror in that, but also like, dude, we're a privateer focused program. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see my boys out there. And I know, like, if I was chasing the dream still, and I wanted to, be a Supercross, just to make a main event, just to say I'm there, dude, that would be, you think things would be, things would be different. I would be a monster. AJ, you would have to fly me to like rehab for like ego intoxication or something. Like I imagine that I'm not the only one that feels that way, but I mean, just to see 4 guys not to be able to get in and get the thing that they need, which is, living the dream, getting the check that helps them get to the next race weekend to continue the dream. That's a tough sale for me, but I understand. I see that's a good point,
Yeah. It's tough. I like all your ideas though. I think they're good.
Yeah.
Before I do want to quickly talk about my class in California, just very quick.
Please do.
Just talking about myself here, but so a couple of things. One, I had like a vertigo episode again 3 days ago. And
I don't know how that keeps happening.
It happened in the middle of the night, and I knew it because I was asleep, but I rolled my head over to the right. And when I rolled my head over to the right, it woke me up because I was like, uh-oh. It just felt dizzy immediately. So I then put my head back on the back of my head and continued sleeping just on my back, looking up at the ceiling, and slept fine. But then I knew when I woke up, I'm like, maybe I'm going to be in trouble. And sure enough, I wake up and I try to sit upright, and I had to lay right back down. I'm like, nope. So I spent the whole day in bed, couldn't get up. And this has happened to me many times before. I still haven't figured out what the solution is, from inner ear and labyrinthitis to trying an Epley maneuver to trying, I've gone to vestibular rehabilitation. I've tried it all.
Wow.
And nothing has worked. So I just kind of have to ride it out. So I get this vertigo attack, so to speak. And then I have to fly to California the next morning. So I'm like, oh boy, I got 24 hours to try to get rid of this thing. The next morning, I didn't really feel any better. I had to tell Allie that I did. So, because she wouldn't let me get on the plane. But I'm like, I'm going to go to class and not canceling class. Like, I don't have enough room in my schedule to reschedule this thing. I've got to go. And so I end up going. Thank God I did, because the weather was awesome. I flew into Sacramento, which I got confused between San Diego and Sacramento, but Sacramento is super cool.
Yeah.
And
nice area.
Went to a track called MMX in Marysville, which is hilarious because it's a huge piece of property, like under a bridge, almost like a highway. And there's 3 tracks with 3 different track owners in this huge compound. It's almost like MTF, GPF type of situation, but there's 3 of them and they're all right there. And I was like, because when I pulled in, I go, how many tracks does this place have? he's like, oh, well, we have these 3, but then there's, see the one way over there? He goes, that's this owner. And then he goes, and then there's one right over there that's huge. And he's like, this is a different owner. And I was like, oh, this is wild.
How have we never heard of that? The minute you said under like a bridge, I'm like, is that the Charlie's Angels truck? Like, what the heck is he?
That's what it felt like. That's literally what it felt like.
Yeah.
Because it was under a bridge, and in California, especially, to where like it's totally in a spot where like, you know, you feel like there's homeless people just absolutely everywhere. So there's graffiti everywhere. It's just like that kind of vibe. But the dirt, especially being California, the dirt here was amazing. The sun was out all day. And it turned out to be such a good day. I had to tell the class at the beginning, I'm like, hey, if you see me stumbling, walking weird, or if when I go to demonstrate, I just look a little off, I go, I'm struggling with vertigo. I'm not drunk. I promise you don't have a drunk teacher.
Just start hiccuping.
Well, because every once in a while, like, I mean, I am so dizzy. It's like I'm seeing 4 of people as I'm looking at them. If I take a step and I lean just the wrong way, or like step on a rock the wrong way, like I'm falling. It's that bad.
Jeez.
But it was such a good group, and most of these people had never been to a track ever. And I get a lot of classes.
Really?
Yeah, I get a lot of classes now, especially where I'll have a few, right? I'll have 2 or 3, but this one I'm going around in the morning and I'm asking, just trying to get a gauge. And it seemed like the majority of people there had never been to a track. And so that class day was their very first experience of a track, which is
Were
so
they
cool.
woods racers, or just they didn't really do much competition?
Either just riding in fields, or, you know, riding desert or single track, just kind of exploring and doing just riding on their own.
Gotcha.
And that's it. So the track was a little muddy in the morning. And so these poor people trying to learn a dirt bike track for the first time, also having to deal with slippery conditions and slightly muddy conditions. But it got so good by the end of the day. And it was just such a good group, because you see them start to 6 hours later, completely different people. I mean, because they don't have any habits yet, a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And there was one person specifically on a KLX that went out there. It was like a KLX 230 or something like that, like the bigger version. And the very first lap was spent sitting down with both feet out. The feet never actually went onto the foot pegs. That was their whole first lap. By the end of the day, I never even saw them sitting down. They were standing up, like in the attack position.
Okay.
And I forgot that there was the same person until today. This morning, I went for a run with Bear outside. And for some reason, I started to think about this person. And I was like, oh my God, that was the same little kid that was riding the morning with their feet just dragging beside them, was ending the day. And I didn't even like I gave him props, but like I didn't give him enough props for that. I was like, I took for granted that this person figured out how to ride and stand up in just one day's time. And they were so great. It was just such a good group. And I was like, man, thank God I went, because I could have easily just stayed in bed, and maybe it would have been better in some senses, so I could have rested. But it was such a good day. Then I get to the airport, and this is kind of a funny story. I go to get in the rental car bus to shuttle me to the terminal. I get in the wrong bus. Of course I do, because I'm not paying attention. Get in the wrong bus. It takes me to the wrong terminal. So I realize once we get to the terminal, I'm in the wrong spot. But the way the guy took my bags when I got onto the bus, I could just tell this dude was like, he had a smile on his face. Everybody was in a rush but him. He was like, people were yelling at him, but he was just like being so nice. And I'm like, oh, this guy, like, I like this guy already. So I was planning on tipping him. Where usually, like, you get on and off the bus, happens so quick. I'm not typically tipping those people. It's rare that I do. But I'm like, I got to tip this guy. He just seems like a good dude. Then sure enough, I'm on the wrong bus. So he's like, you know what? He goes, don't worry about it. My bus doesn't go to this terminal. He goes, my shift's over. I'm going to take you. So now it's just me and him. His shift is done. And we get to talking, and he came from a family of 10 kids. He has 8 kids himself. And I'm like, you're my hero. Like, I'm like, that's what I'm like, that is freaking amazing. He's telling me all of these things. And I go to grab my wallet, and I give him $100 bill. I'm like, I can't help but to not, like, I got to tip that. It feels right. Something about, like, it just feels right. So I give him $100, and he like double takes at it, because he thought it was $1 at first. Then he goes, are you sure? And I'm like, absolutely. I said, buy a couple of your kids dinner, maybe 1 or 2. Buy 1 or 2 of your kids dinner. And he starts laughing and he's like, man, I'm so grateful. Thank you. And then he starts talking about, right after I hand him the money, he starts talking about how life and the universe, like time is cyclical and it's a cycle, and it kind of always comes back to, and it goes through seasons and it comes back to.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? I open my backpack up because the book that I'm reading right now is called The Fourth Turning. And The Fourth Turning is literally a book about how the universe and life goes through seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter, and it repeats every 20 years as a turning, every 100 years as a seculum, and it always repeats. Literally, the book in my backpack that I just finished reading was what he is like describing, and I show him the book, and he's just like, I was so mind blown. It was like I paid him money for the universe to then confirm that
you're on the right path.
That I'm on the right path.
Yeah. Yep. Dude, that happens so much. And like, and everyone's path is different, but like, and people call it different things, universe, God, whatever. I call it God. But those little confirmations that you get, they feel like God just said, yep, hey, you're guaranteed success. Here's a warm hug. Like to confirm that you're doing the right thing in moments like that, where you have some serendipity or you find somebody in the like mindset like yourself. Oh man, it's such a good feeling. That is what I talk about. Like, dude, chasing that, like,
it was
putting yourself in
crazy.
Good position.
He literally
it
did
makes
the
you
visual.
feel good.
I mean, he literally was drawing it with his hand the way that I envisioned it in my mind. And I was like, what the? And then, I mean, I was just like, I was on cloud 9 at that point, and I made his day too. So like, it was just like such a good interaction. And then I get off the bus, and then my phone, because I have Shopify, the only notification I have on my phone is my Shopify. So then my phone just starts going cha-ching, cha-ching,
comes
cha-ching.
back to you. Yep.
And I made like $3,000 in the next 20 minutes from orders, just like the store was popping off. And I'm like, yep. And I go, that is just another sign. That's not always how it works. It's not always tit for tat.
No, yeah.
But when you live in abundance like that, in that mindset of abundance, where like only a person that lives in abundance is willing to give to somebody else.
And I always tell Mary that. I'm like, she's always like, well, should we? I'm like, Mary, don't think like that. Like, if it's something that feels good to us, and we're not buying like Rolls Royces and freaking gold chains and stuff, but like, hey, like, like, give a little bit extra to this like food bank this month or something. Cause we try to pick like 3 places to donate money to each month, whether it's like helping like conservation stuff or a local animal shelter or something. And she's like, oh, like it's a little tight this month. I'm like, dude, give him an extra 100. It will be okay. 9 times out of 10, dude, like, if you have that mindset of like, we live in abundance, it's going to come right back to us. We're sharing opportunity and blessings, dude. You look and you're like, oh crap, I found $100 bill in my glove compartment because like that one time I sold a bike part and forgot that I put the cash in there or something. You know what I mean? Like it always ends up coming those things happen all the time. I accidentally gave I was giving an offering at church, and instead of giving like a $5, I gave like, there were like 220 stuck together, and I was like, you know what? Whatever, this great sermon, whatever. And I don't know, something happened where like I opened up my toolbox and I was like, $40, dude, where did this come from? And I was like, oh crap, like this is probably from like Manny stopped by the house to leave me cash for going out to dinner the other night when I paid, or something like that, where like you get that cash, that thing right back when you spread abundance or opportunity, or like what you did. You spread, that's a spread of love, man. That's a spread of like, some good stuff right there.
It was
such
cool.
A good point.
It was so cool. And it was just like, and for those listening that maybe aren't operating or thinking in that way just yet, because trust me, my whole life I was not. It doesn't always, the synchronicity is not always that obvious. It's not always also that immediate. This was like something that like the way it happened, it was so freaking obvious. And it was so immediate that I was just like, holy cow. Like, thank you. I am certainly, I am on the right path. If I didn't know now, if I didn't know before, I definitely know now.
I definitely know now. Yeah. Sometimes it comes back to you in opportunities or people that you meet, it's, I always go back to like the collective. When we started this thing up, really should not have been able to get off the ground, but just certain things just kept happening to let me know like, hey, you want to help people? Like it's it's going to come back to you, you know, and we can talk on a whole podcast about this, dude. I'm sure you've got 10 different examples of.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that story because I just thought it was just such a special couple of minutes. So shout out Spencer.
That's awesome.
If you found us and you're listening to this podcast, shout out Spencer.
Shout out Spencer. That's so cool, man. He
was an awesome. You would have loved this guy too. I mean, he was like, we just had such a good and the fact even that we were on the bus alone, like, and his shift was ending, and that's what allowed us the time to have that conversation in the first place.
Knowing you, I bet I know what Spencer looks like, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, 100%
fan club.
Oh, he's absolutely a part of my black fan base, without a question.
Yep, exactly, dude. The minute you said that, I was like, oh my God, dude, his black fan base is growing so huge.
It was very special. That alone made flying freaking, and like my flight back, I connected and I went from Sacramento to San Francisco, from San Francisco to Washington Dulles, from Washington Dulles to Connecticut.
What?
On a red eye. So this is all through the night. I'm just hopping on and off these planes. Like, it was not an easy getting to California. It was very far away and it took forever. But that 10-minute bus ride made all of that worth it. It was so special. That was so cool. Okay, well, I hear Millie crying upstairs, and I'm starving. So I need to go eat some lunch. Dave, thanks for hopping on. Let's hope that this is a new setup for those of you watching, the two people still watching and listening right now. Dave has my mic, my Rodecaster, which is the thing that the audio goes into, and camera, which are exactly the same setup I have here. So hopefully it sounds and looks amazing. If not, we'll hopefully figure it out a little better next time.
Yeah, we'll get it. We're slowly leveling up. We're getting there.
Yep. I have a good feeling. I think it's going to look good. I think if anything, we just have to rearrange where your chair is, or just black out those curtains.
The orientation,
so you don't have a weird light.
We'll get it. Yeah. Hey, your boy is going to start riding probably this next week or two. So
really,
expect a bunch of text messages. Yeah, dude, Achilles is feeling good. We got some new boots. We're repping the CD lifestyle now. So got the Moto Academy graphics on the new bikes and or bike plastics. So we're good. We're gonna try.
I'm itching to ride. I ride a class, but it's like very, very little. I'm dying to just do some riding for myself, like dying.
You know who's been getting seat time is Coach Mitchell, man.
Yeah. He has a couple. He has like a good indoor place by him too. So he does. Yeah, he does a good job of also staying in shape. Like he does a good job of pedaling a lot and just going to the gym. And he's probably in pretty good shape right now. Where I might get winded.
He looks pretty quick. Looks really good in that new Honda, man. He looks like he's really, really gelling well with it. So shout out to Coach Mitchell.
Yep, shout out Coach Mitchell. All right, guys, Moto Academy podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Toodles.